In Latin, we have our 5 declensions of nouns. And we've already took a look at the first and the second. We know that they're identified by their genitive singular. So we know that the first declension had AE, second declension has I. Well, now we're going to take a look at the third declension. And the third declension is recognized by the genitive singular IS. The third declension is a little different now because all genders can be encompassed within this declension. The endings for the third declension are blank, is, ema, s, ibus, s, ibus. Now, this blank up here is left blank because there's really no predetermined set ending for the third declension. For example, in the first declension we had a, in the second declension we had us, neuter we had Here, it really could be anything, so we're going to have to be able to determine that based upon what's given to us in the dictionary form. So let's look at the word sister. Here, we've declined the word sister, we left the nominative as by itself, and then we've simply added the third declension ending onto it. And again, we did the same thing over here in the plural. So by the addition of these endings onto the word soror, we have now moved this word into its form so that we can translate it properly. However, there are some nouns that are going to have a stem change. For example, frater, fratris. Notice how the E disappears when we move into the genitive. When that happens, we decline it slightly different. And if we take a look, frater, the nominative, stays up here, but once we hit the genitive, we now use that stem change when we decline. And it sticks through the plural also. So if there's a stem change, it's going to stay pretty consistent throughout all of your declension. Now, there are other nouns that do stem changes. Take a look at the dux, ducus, mater, matris, corpus, corporis, facinus, facinoris. That stem change before the is is what we're looking at. That's going to indicate if we need to change the form of the word before we decline it. Now, there are also neuter nouns in Latin, and the same rules for neuter apply, the whole nomen accusative. The nominative and the accusative are the same, so tempus and tempus, and over here in the plurals we've changed the nomen accusative to a. If you note, tempus temporis does have a stem change, so that's why we went from tempus to temporis, tempori, back to tempus, because nomen accusative. And then again, all of the stem changes used here in the plurals. There's also one more thing about the third declension that can be a little tricky, and this is called I stem. Now, these are a lot of really wordy rules. Most of the time, we're going to be able to identify these based upon what's given in the dictionary, but let's take a look at what the rules are first. First, parasybolic nouns, which means that they have the same number of syllables in the nominative and the genitive, like ignis, ignis, hostis, hostis, civis, civis. Monosyllabic, which means one syllable in the nominative and two consonants before the is of the genitive singular, like ars, that's one sound, artis, there's the two consonants, arx, archis, mors, mortis. And then neuter nouns that end in e, al, and r, like animal, mare, and exemplar. These three rules are going to determine if something is an I stem. Okay, well, what is an I stem? An I stem is really simple. All it is that we're adding an extra I. And normally that I is just added into the genitive plural. So for example, we saw ignis. Ignis before is an I stem because same number of syllables in the nominative and in the genitive. So if we were to decline that, the only difference here between the regular third declension is that I've added an extra I right there. The neuters do something a little different. We still have the neuter rules for the nomen accusatives, but notice now how we've added an I pretty much everywhere. Every ending has an I. So the ablative changed to an I, the nomen accusative plural is ia, and the genitive plural is ia. So if we take mare maris, this is what it would look like if we were to decline it. Now, there aren't a ton of these. When we encounter them, we'll point them out, so don't get too stressed out over them. So in summary, third declension nouns can be all genders. The endings for the nouns that belong to the third declension are basically this with some variants. Remember that the blank is there because there's no set ending. And there are variants to the third declension, including I stem and neuter.